I think we're all elated, delighted by what is happening in Tunisia and Egypt. As Asif said, revolutions are not engineered. There are many violent changes of regimes that are called revolution, but they're in fact coup d'etats. I mean, Egypt's revolution in the 1950s when Nasser and the army came to power and inaugurated the republic and replaced the monarchy was called a revolution, as were regime changes in Syria and Iraq and many other places in the Middle East, but they were not revolutions in the sense that it wasn't the general population that brought about those changes. 1979 in Iran was a genuine revolution. We have, and in some ways we've had like tremendous popular movements in Iran. Even 1997 elections in Iran were kind of seen as a moment of profound challenge to existing and established order through an expression of popular will. They were seen as kind of a proto-revolution, right? And they're elating moments. They're really kind of wonderful moments, right? But then, we've had, I have had the personal privilege of having lived at least through 3 of these moments in Iran itself, in 79, 97, and then 2009. The question is, what happens afterwards? Revolutions often end up being tremendously disappointing. Remember 1989, when the Soviet army came out of its barracks and put Gorbachev, the then president of the Soviet Union and the Secretary General of the Communist Party under arrest, and they started moving down the street in tank columns. And suddenly, the generals leading the tank columns looked behind them and they saw the other tanks are not following. The superpower military might of the second superpower basically just collapsed, fell apart. It was a revolutionary moment. It led to Yeltsin. It led to the rule of our oligarchs. And it was a moment of, in what way, many would ask, and many would not ask this, but many would also ask, I would ask, well, in what way is what we have in Soviet Union so much superior to, in Russia today, so much superior to what it was before? I mean, if you're living in Grozny, in Chechnya, in what sense do you think that your life has changed for better? These are serious questions that need to be asked. I'm not questioning the revolutionary explosions themselves. I mean, as I said, they're not a moment of, they're not the application of individual willpower. Nobody's engineering these. A true revolutionary moment behind closed doors is, expression of popular will and discontent with the established order. But how do we, through going through these painful, very costly experiences, how do we get to something better? Do we stop politics and basically give up on, imagining that we can build and establish a truly new order? Or do we kind of try to learn from past experiences? I think the second is really what we need to do. We need to learn from our mistakes. If there are moments where society kind of expresses itself and challenges, despite all the costs, the established order, what has that society learned from its previous past experiences? To the extent that it has learned something, that different, and society is never kind of a unified monolithic block. It's different social classes, different ideologies, different genders, different ethnic groups, second class and first class citizens, poor people and rich people, right? At that moment, what kind of balance are these kind of very disparate people willing to strike? How will they kind of renegotiate the new possible political order and distribution of power amongst themselves? Is really the key question that will lead to either some improvement and genuinely better order, or kind of end up into more misery and a step backward. Looking at the Iranian case, let me say this. I think the Green Movement was a tremendous moment of possibility, and I believe that it's still it's very much there, because the popular discontent, the social discontent is there. The causes, the roots of that explosion of discontent haven't gone away. And in some ways, I think the green, the green movement, or what we saw after the elections, is really a continuation of the kind of struggle for a liberal democratic order that has been going on in Iran since 1906, constitutional revolution. It's the Iranian people still trying to establish a constitutional order, saying that the existing state should respond to the rules that it has established itself. It has a constitution, live by this constitution, right? Despite all its flaws, you have to act according to these rules that you, the state, have accepted and are there, based on these rules, right? That has been the struggle. This is a limited struggle because there are a lot of other problems of division of power in Iran as in other societies. There are class divisions. There are all sorts of divisions of wealth and access to power that people who may have political rights do not enjoy because they don't have the economic rights that go along with it, right? But the Green Movement, in other words, the Green Movement was a continuation of that ongoing political struggle, and I feel very proud as an Iranian and as somebody who has lived in Iran, who works in Iran, as Danny said, I work with a journal, I've lived there and worked there for a number of years. I am very proud of that. But I think it's really important not to fetishize the Green Movement and really kind of see what its flaws were and how we can actually kind of think about improving this and kind of adding to this existing discontent and giving it, because that's the role of political leadership, that's the role of political thinking. The Iranian Revolution in 1979 has been accepted by Iranians and the world at large as having been an Islamic revolution. What does that mean? It basically means that there was the hegemony of Ayatollah Khomeini as a uniquely endowed political leader at the time. But I think if for those of us who lived through the Iranian Revolution and were active in it, we were quite aware that it's like now, it's a very kind of complex society. The key moment of transition in the Iranian Revolution in 1979 came with the oil workers' strike. That basically, for the first time in an major oil-producing society, basically completely stopped the oil operations, the petroleum operations, which was the most important, internationally connected sector of the Iranian economy. Expelled about 20,000 multinational corporations and personnel that were operating in it. Nobody thought at that time that the petroleum industry, which was petrochemicals, gas, oil, electricity production, energy, so on and so forth, could actually be run by third world specialists. This is 1970s, right? The Iranian Revolution and the actions of the Iranian oil workers and petroleum staff basically inaugurated a new phase in kind of multinationals and as well as other kind of oil producing countries realizing that, well, we can do this. We can run this industry ourselves, right? And in the case of Iran, it really kind of coalesced a tremendous amount of power, not just in the clergy, not just in the person of Ayatollah Khomeini, but also in people who were producing the wealth of the society. Because another really important element of the Iranian Revolution in 1979 was the class issue. Was the fact that we had a kleptomaniac monarchy. We had a monarchy that was completely beholden to international global order of imperial international division of labor, right? And people were challenging that order as well as the monarchy. But what happened in Iran was that the Iran-Iraq war basically destroyed a moment of possibility of not just dealing with the dictatorship, but also with the class issues in Iran. And I think the problem with Iranian society is that the class issue has remained unsolved. The biggest losers of the period of post-Iran-Iraq war liberalization period, which basically saw political opening, have been the working population. of Iran. And the reason that the Green Movement never managed to kind of move out of the street the moment it became vulnerable to repression and move out of the streets into the workplaces, to bring about, to kind of basically paralyze the apparatus of repression through general strikes, which Iran has had a long history of, especially during 1979, was because the people participating in the Green Movement never took the class issue, the issue of the disparity of wealth and the inequality in the society and the rising poverty seriously. And unless, I think, we kind of, those of us who are active in Iranian politics or speak to it, take this issue seriously and address it and make it part of our political program, that, political opening, political democracy is really vital and important. But unless other equally, even more profoundly issues, such as class inequality, which is a tremendous issue in Iran, are also addressed and become an integral part of our political program, poor people have nothing to gain by going out in the streets and getting shot by the military. They say, well, look, we're here, let's keep our jobs, we are in the, we're just trying barely to survive. I have nothing to gain to go and call, ask for my vote, because my vote is not going to deliver anything to me except more penury, except more, more possibility of losing my job because, I don't know, some multinational foreign corporation can come in and take over the factory that I'm working in and basically, make it more efficient and, lay off a lot of the workforce as it has happened elsewhere. So I think this is the big lesson that at least the Green Movement in Iran has to learn. That's why it has kind of come to a stall at this point. That's why it was vulnerable to repression. And at least what I'm seeing in Egypt is that to some extent this issue is being addressed more because there are more independent trade unions in Egypt. In Egypt, it seems, at least from what I know, and I'm not an expert in Egypt, but at least the poor people have a lot more to gain by being part of this, vast and expanding movement, because it is not set ideologically as basically purely accepting a formal political transition of authority. But it seems that these other issues, such as class issues of inequality and poverty, are also part of this expanding political program that are being discussed in Egypt. That's why it's more attractive to the general population, and I am very hopeful. But then that's all you can be with political movements. You have to lend in your force, be part of it, but also speak out to these issues that are really kind of vital to the success.